Hello everyone. Good morning. Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Uh, Samar sir, can we start the session now?
Yes,
Okay. So before starting, students, I would like to introduce our guest speaker. Today, Mr. Samar Sarin is our industry expert for this session. He had done his BTech and MTech from NMS Mumbai. His MTech specialization it is in artificial intelligence. He had work experience in a He worked as an associate software engineer in Accenture in the year 1718. Then he had worked as a data scientist consultant in XLS services in year 2021. Now currently he is working as a data scientist in a Gartner. So I welcome you, sir, for this session on Google Chatbot. Uh, Sir,
thank you,
you
ma'am,
can
for the
start.
introduction.
Okay, sir, you can start your session. Students are still joining, but uh, if we wait for them, then time there is a time limitation, so you can start the session.
Okay, is my screen visible?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So, hi everyone. So, today we will be looking at creating chatbots using Dialogflow. Dialogflow is a Google product, and to a lot of extent, it is free to use. But there are some additional services which, if you want to incorporate in your chatbot, then you will have to switch to a paid plan. And so, the first thing I would like to tell is Dialogflow is one of the most powerful tools because it supports, like it's a Google product, it supports the natural understanding of the text which comes in from the user side. Also, it's a single platform with which you can create chatbots for multiple platforms like Telegram, Facebook Messenger, websites, and like there are a lot of things in which you can integrate your bot. So the first thing is like you just have to log in into dialogflow.cloud.google.com and you need a simple Gmail account to sign in into this. So we can just log in with their Gmail account. So as soon as you open your Gmail account, the last chatbot if you have created will open up. If you haven't created any chatbot, then you get a page like this. Firstly, it will ask you for the name of this bot which you want to create. So you can give any name for this. So like if we in today's session, we will try to create a chatbot for college admissions. And if somebody is looking for admission in your college, so what all questions he can have and how do we try to cater all these questions? So we will try to create a bot which will cater all the scenarios which will help a person looking for a chatbot rather than calling the help desk and admissions department for every small query. They can interact with our bot and get all the answers. So we can give a name like admission chatbot. Then you have the option of language. If you are looking for English language, then you it's a default selection. But if you are looking for any other language, then you can select that language. So it's up in there are very less regional languages for India, but there is Hindi as well. So if you want the bot to be created in Hindi, it can be created in Hindi as well. You have an option to create it in multiple languages as well. So like the same bot can be in multiple languages. So that is something which you can do from within this bot as well. So there is no need to create it from here. So you select your default language, which is English. Then we select a time zone. This is the only thing which you have to select from here. The rest everything will be created by default. And you just click on create over here. It will take about 15-20 seconds to create the bot. It is setting up everything in this followed with the default settings. So this is basically the first interface which you will get after you have created your agent. So I'll just walk you through the interface, what all things are there and what all things we'll be using to create the bot. So if you see on the left side of the panel, you have options like intent, entities, knowledge, fulfillment, integration. We'll go into the options one by one. So intent is basically which you can consider as a category of set of questions which you are trying to categorize into one category. So suppose a person comes to your board and asks about what is the fees for BTech computer science. So person A can ask what is the fees for BTech computer science. Person B can ask fees for computer science. Third person can ask computer science fees. So there are multiple ways to ask a same question. So you are categorizing all these questions into one intent, and you can name that intent to something like fees. So everything related to fees can be clubbed into that intent. So there might be a possibility that somebody is asking for a particular course, and then he's asking for a fees. So based on the keyword fees, the dialog flow is smart enough to map it to the intent, which is called as fees or any name which you want to create. So that is how the intent is known in Dialogflow. So if you see when the agent was created, the Dialogflow creates two intents by default. So first is a default welcome intent, which you can see over here. Second is the default fallback intent. So default welcome intent is something which is already created by Dialogflow, and it says that uh, like whenever a person comes on the bot, he is generally supposed to greet the bot. So if you open one intent, so this is something which you will see inside an intent. So here is the name of the intent. You can edit it if you want. Then we have context events. We will go through them a bit later. Then you have a section called as training phrases. Training phrases is something which you will list down over here, which you are expecting the user might enter, and based on that entry, I will map this into this intent. So like if somebody comes up and says hi, hello, howdy, hey there. So this is hey, hello. So this is something which Dialogflow has already created for you as a default intent. It is already there in the system. If you want, you can delete it and create your own. If you want to edit this, you can edit this as well. So it is all up to you. If you have something a special keyword in order to awake your bot, then also you can add it over here. So you can add any number of training phrases as you want over here. So like somebody comes up and says welcome. You just type it and just press enter. It is now part of the training phase. So whenever a person comes on the board and types anything similar to these training phases entered over here, the dialog flow will map it into default welcome. There can be any number of training phases and there can be any number of words in a training phase. But it is recommended not to keep too long sentences because then you are trying to confuse the bot if you are putting similar training phrases in two or more intents. So if I type welcome over here and I type create a new intent and type welcome over there as well, then it would be a random selection because it has both the intents have the same training phrase. So it will map into any of the intent random. So that is highly not recommended to create similar training phrases with similar intent with similar training phrases. So this is the part where you're defining an intent. If you go down a bit, you have a section called as parameters. We'll cover it in the next section. Then you have the part which is called as responses. So after you somebody comes on the bot and types a name or types anything like he types hello, then your bot has now categorized it into default welcome intent. Now you have to show a reply to the user. So this section which says the response, it will tell me what response the bot should give. This is something which I will have to define over here. You can see Dialogflow has already defined four responses for me. If I delete this and you will see an option which is called as add responses. I just create a text response. I create hello, welcome to my. So this is the response which the user will get if he types any of the above training queries. You can see there are multiple like rows in order to enter them. So if I say in the first blank, I have entered one response. If I type something in the second option, now everything will be categorized into this intent only. But now I have given two responses, so it would be a random selection, and a random one of them will be shown to the user as a response. It can be any of them. It would be a random selection. I can define any number of them. So if I keep on typing over here, so now I have defined eight responses. So whenever a person gets types anything like hello, it will be mapped into default welcome intent, and then any of these eight will be shown to the user. It would be a random selection. If you want to show them two responses, so like if you for in the first time you say hi, welcome, and then in you want to show two responses, so then you have an option to create another response. Then you will say how can I help you. So now in this case, it will show both the responses. So it will respond with two messages. First would be hello, welcome to admission chatbot. Second would be how can I help you. And Dialogflow will not allow you to enter more than two text responses. Like you cannot reply with more than two messages at once. So you will have to create like adjust your answer within two responses itself. So after I have defined my training phrases and the responses, I just click on the save button on the top. And on the right side, you can see there is a small text box which says try it now. This try it now will help you test your bot as soon as you have done some changes in the bot. So if I type hey, you can see I'm getting the response as whatever I entered over here. So this is the section which will respond. This is the part which will give you all the things about what your bot is doing. So this is the response. This you can see the name of the intent which Dialogflow thing should be mapped into. And then you have a sentiment as well. So sentiment is basically you must have done in the natural language processing class. So sentiment is basically telling us how good, how positive or neutral this statement is, which is entered by the user. Then you have an option of diagnostic info. This diagnostic info will tell you a lot of more things about the query, and this will be in form of a JSON. So if you are able to understand what JSON is, then you will be able to understand what this structure is. So this is a response ID. This is something which is randomly generated. Then you have a query result. What was the user input is defined over here. What was the action? If there are any parameters, it will come up over here. Currently, there are no parameter, hence it's blank. Then you have the fulfillment text. Fulfillment text, fulfillment messages, these are the important part because this is the response which your bot is showing to the user. And rest everything is something with, and then you have the intent name. Then you have the confidence, how confident the model, the machine learning model behind Dialogflow is that it should be mapped in this intent. So like it says 100% because it's a perfect match. Then you have language code, sentiments, everything is over here. So if you are looking for something more deep inside what's happening in your bot, you always have an option of diagnostic info and you can look into the bot. And in the end, you have an option of a toggle button which says set this intent as the end of conversation. If you turn this off, then like after this intent is triggered, your conversation will end from the bot side, your session and everything will be deleted. Any doubts till now?
No, sir.
So the next part is basically which is called as entities. Entity is something which you are looking to extract as a parameter from the user input. So like if somebody comes up and says, what is the fees for BTech computer science? And the next user comes up and says, please tell me the fees for BTech mechanical. So ideally, both of them are asking the same question, but you cannot, it is not recommended, and obviously you will not create multiple intents because you have multiple courses in your college. Because if somebody comes up and says, what is the fees for BTech computer science and what is the fees for BTech mechanical? And if you have 10 courses, you will end up creating 10 intents only for fees. So like fees is one section and there might be hundreds of more sections. Somebody is asking about the exam date, somebody is asking about admission forms, college college opening date, holidays. Like there are multiple things about which a person can ask for a particular course. So it is not recommended to create multiple intents for every course. Instead, what you can do is what is the fees for BTech computer science and what is the fees for BTech mechanical. So these are two same training phases which goes inside one intent which is called as fees. And inside that fees, what you can do is you can try extracting the course name. Based on the course name extracted, you show user the answer, which is dependent upon the course name directly. And that answer can be coming somewhere from your database or your any other service. So that is something which is recommended because entities will help you extract the parameters from the training from the user input. So you can consider there are some entities which are already defined within Dialogflow. If you want to use them directly, then you can use them directly as well. But if you think that they are the entity which you want to extract is too specific to your use case, then again Dialogflow gives you an option to create it on your own. So if I go into the entities part, I click on create entity. So entity name can be anything. So for our case, it would be something like course name. And then you have an option to create the entities over here. If I click here to edit entity, so there are two parts right now in this. So one is the enter reference value, and then is enter synonym. Enter reference value is something which will be the final answer which Dialogflow will consider. So it can be BTech PS. And then enter synonyms is something which the user you think user will be entering, and all these entries will be mapped to BTech CS. So you think user can type computer BTech com, BTech PS, computers, computer science. More the number of entries you enter, more strong you are making the bot in order to identify what the user is trying to say. And in Dialogflow, it will only map if it is a perfect match in entities. So entity has a slight uh, difficulty in mapping to the correct one. So you need to enter as many as the entities which you think the user might be entering. So if I enter any of these five, they will all be mapped into btext CS. So are you understanding how the UI is? On the right side, you are mentioning the number of variations which the user might enter. And how should Dialogflow understand those variations? It should map all the variations into btext. I will define another one, which is btext civil. So you can say btext civil, and you can create any number of entities. And after you are done with all the entries, you just click on save. So now you can see there is an entity which is created as course name. And one important thing to notice that entity name is followed by a special character which is at the rate. So if I see the entity name, you can see that these were the two things which I defined. So they are now saved. Now we go back to the intents and we create a new intent which will be capturing and answering for fees. I name this as fees, and in training phrases, I will ask something like, what is the fees? So if you see over here, I have not mentioned the course name as of now, and I have entered into the training phrase. But without the course name, I will not be able to know about which course the user is asking, and there are different answers for every course. So what I will do is this training phrase is something which is not recommended to be added. So I will enter a new training phrase, which is what is the fees for BTech CS. So if you see, as soon as I entered it as a training phrase, Dialogflow understood that this is a entity which you have created, and it will highlight it and say that this is the parameter in the training phrase. There might also be a possibility that sometimes Dialogflow is not able to understand what your intent. It will not automatically highlight. Then you again have an option, like suppose it has not identified it on its own. So you have an option to tell Dialogflow that this is an entity which you have to extract. So what you will do is after you have entered the training phase, you just highlight it, and Dialogflow will give all the list of entities which is available in Dialogflow along with your custom entities. So any entity name followed by sys is something which is system defined, and it is within Dialogflow. You will not be able to, like, yeah, you can select it, you can edit it as well if you want, but it will also show on the top the name of the entities which you have defined. So it shows course name as my entity. I'll select it, and you can see that course name has come up in this. So now currently I have entered BTech CS fees as a training phrase, but now without defining a new training phrase, even if I enter BTech civil fees, it will be able to understand, because that parameter is not hard coded in the training phrase. Parameter is anything which is defined in our entity. So any value which is defined in the entity comes up over here, it will replace it, and it will be the variable course name will be defined with that value. So you can see now I entered BTech Civil, it is again able to capture that this is a course name, which is an entity you have defined. So defining these entities is important, because without entities, Dialogflow will not be able to capture your course name, and you will not be able to define about, like, understand about which course the user is asking. Again, now there might be a possibility that the user doesn't enter. If I go down, if I go down in the actions and parameter section, you can see that there is a course name which has come up. So this is the name of the parameter which you have defined. You can edit this name. Entity won't be edited because it is you just defined it in the entity name. And then you have a value. Value and parameter name would be same. It's just that value will be followed by a dollar sign. Now there is a small possibility that somebody comes up and just types fees. In that fees, you have not the user has not defined the course name, and without course name, you cannot move ahead because you don't know about which course the user is asking, and you are stuck. You don't have the option to give any answer. So what Dialogflow offers is there is an option check box over here which says required. If you check this box, it will become a required parameter, and required parameters mean the Dialogflow will not proceed ahead until the user enters the course name. If it is a missing in the course name, it will come up with a prompt saying that please enter the course name. And what the prompt should say is something which you can define. So if you see when it was unchecked, there is no option over here. As soon as I check it, a new option comes up which says prompts. And then there is another link which click on which I click, it shows me define the prompt. Here you will enter the text which you want the user to see, like the bot should respond with this text if the parameter is missing in the training phase. So if somebody doesn't enter the course name, you can just type please tell me the course name and you just close it. And then this is the response which we are telling to the user. And you just click on save. So if I type fees for BTech PS, so you can see it has mapped it into the intent fees, and it has also shown me the response of fees is 2 lakhs. But if now I type only fees, it sees that there is no course name entered in this. There is no entity which is being extracted. And you can see the intent entity section, the parameter extracted course name, it is blank as of now. And it is now asking me the question which we entered in the prompt section. Please tell me the course name. Yeah, now you just enter BTech CS, and now you can see that the parameter has now been captured, which is BTech CS. This value is something which is the left part of the entity which we had defined. The right side had all the variations. The left side is something which you want all the, like basically in Python, if you see, it's a dictionary kind of structure where you have a key value pair. Value is all the variations which user can enter, and key is something which will be the part which will be understood by Dialogflow. Everything related in the values will be mapped into key. If I now type fees for BTech Civil, now you can see that the parameter value has changed. It's BTech Civil now. Also, if you go into diagnostic info, you will be able to see the parameter section has come up, which is the course name. Any doubts till now?
Yes, sir. I have two questions.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the first question is that we have defined the BTech Civil, BTech CS as the parameter in the course name parameter here. So what if someone enters? Please tell me the number of seats for BTech CS. It will still go to the fees part and it will output fees, right? So how do we relate the like course name to the fees part. Like we have to define somewhere that if the person is asking for fees, then only we have to output fees. If he's asking something else, even though the course name parameter is being mentioned, we have to give the output something else.
No, but in that training phases you have mentioned only about the fees, right? So it will be mapped into the fees intent only. So if somebody comes up and asks you what is the fees for BTech Civil, then Dialogflow maps it into the fees intent. The first step is basically the intent classification. It will map
Yes, yes.
into the fees intent. Next step is it will go inside the intent and check what is the next step I have to do. Do I have to look for parameters, or if everything is okay, then should I respond?
uh,
So it will check
okay.
on that. First thing it will
Yes,
check if there is a parameter requirement. If there is a parameter requirement, it will extract which is the course name in our case. It will extract that. It will check that like if the parameter is available or not. If it is available, I have to extract it. Then it will extract and save it in a parameter name. The
okay.
next thing is it will check with the response. If you type something other than fees, it will get classified into any other intent. That is the part which comes in to picture. As a developer, you have to think of all the scenarios with the user you think which you can the user might enter or ask your bot.
Okay, sir. So it means that the entities are a sub part of the int. It will first check the intent and then
Yes,
go into the entities part.
yes.
Yeah.
If you
Okay, sir.
type, if you like you said about you wanted to check about the number of seats. So when somebody types number of seats, it will be classified into the seats intent. It has nothing to do with the fees intent.
Correct, correct. Yes, sir. Okay. So my second
And
question was if yes, sir.
entering into the seats intent, then it will check what is the parameter, if there is a requirement or not, whatever the next step you define.
Okay, sir. Yeah. So my second question was if suppose like we have to output two different fees, like if the fees for civil is different and if fees for CS is different, then how do we do that?
So that is something which we will not be able to do within Dialogflow. We will look into that part. That is something which has to be handled from the backend section. We will look into that part, but that
Okay.
is something which you will be using APIs and you will be taking the data out of Dialogflow and responding it from your outside servers. That is something which we will look into the section later today.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Anything else?
No, sir, I guess.
You can also define like more number of parameters, so they all will be extracted. There like there might be multiple parameters also which you want to extract, and like there might be a scenario in which you want to ask user multiple like user enters multiple parameters in one. So like in this case, if I enter fees for BTech Civil and BTech CS. So if I enter in this, can anybody tell me what will happen, which one will be captured and which will be removed? I have entered two parameters over here. And will it be classified into the fees intent? If yes, then will what parameter will be captured and which will be removed or both will be captured?
So it will be classified into the fees intent, and I think the first one will be captured and second one will be disregarded.
If
Is
I
that correct?
enter this, fees will be classified. It will be classified into fees. But there is no hard and fast rule that it will always be categorized. It will always capture the first one. It might capture the second. It might capture the first. But in my case, if I want to capture both of them, there might be some special intent in which I want to capture multiple parameters. Then Dialogflow option offers you an option which says is list. If you check this part, then now if I enter, I have not saved. Now you can see it is giving me a list which has captured both the entities. So somebody can come up, please tell me the fees for BTech Civil and Computer Science and Mechanical and Electronics. So there might be any number of use cases and any number of parameters user might be entering. So there might be a possibility that you want to enter multiple of them and you want to capture as a developer, you want to capture all of them and you have to answer for all the parameters which the user has entered. So in that case, you can make it as a list. The next part which we'll be looking at is something which is called as a context. So what context means is it is similar to what how humans interact. Context is one of the most powerful features of Dialogflow, which you will not get in any of the other platforms, which makes Dialogflow unique and like one of the best when it comes to the natural understanding of the text which the users are how users are interacting with the bot. It makes it more natural, making it like you can feel that you might be talking to a human. So what context means is suppose somebody comes up to you as a like two person are talking and somebody comes up to you and like you are the person who is sitting on the college help desk and somebody calls up and says, hey, please tell me the fees for BTech Civil. And you tell like it is 2 lakhs. The next question which he asks, and what is the admission process? So ideally, as a human, you know that the user asked about admission process. He's asking about BTech Civil only because the first question was about BTech Civil. But if you understand, if you look into the language of Dialogflow, then the first question is what is the fees for BTech Civil? You extracted the parameter, you gave him the answer that it is 2 lakhs. The next question which he asked is what is the admission process or how can I apply? So in that case, he has not entered the parameter. Like what is the admission process? He has not entered the parameter of BTech Civil. What Dialogflow will do is it will keep on asking about with the parameter. If the user has to ask 10 questions about BTech Civil, every time he has to type BTech Civil in the chat. From the user standpoint, you can understand how irritating it can be that you have to enter the post name again and again in order to get the answer from the users because obviously the admission process might be different for different courses and you have created it as an parameter and it would be obviously a required parameter and you will keep on asking because you not having the parameter and Dialogflow will keep on asking it for you. So what Dialogflow comes up is something called as context. There are two types of context. One is an input context, one is an output context. The majority part which you will be working as a developer would be the output context. Output context is something when the person enters a user query comes in, and if there is any parameter, that parameter is saved in the parameter as well it is saved in the context. And context is something which is a lifespan. So we say lifespan. Lifespan is something which is basically a number which you define That number defines how many number of next inputs the context should be active. So if you go into something which is the speech intent, so you can see there is a context section over here. One says output, one says input. So this output means the output context. You can define any name for the context. So you can say my course name. As soon as press enter, you can see 5 has appeared over here. And you can see that as I hover over it, it shows lifespan. 5 means next for next 5 conversations, like for next 5 inputs from user, this this context will remain active. After 5 steps, on the sixth input, this intent will vanish away, and like you will have to create a new context, or you will have to like you have to work without the context. You can edit this value also. You can type anything like one, like minimum is one, maximum is 20, 50, I think, but it is recommended to keep it 25. So for next, like if I keep it like 25, for next 25 inputs from the user, this context will remain active. Now I just have to save it. Now if I type fees for BTech CS, now you can see the parameter course name has captured BTech CS, and you have a section context which has come up, which says my course name. You have parameter which we already saw, and you have again have part which has two things. One is the BTech course name original, and one is the course name. Course name original is something which the user entered, how what he entered, so that is extracted directly and saved into course name dot original. The next is course name, which your entity, like how your entities are mapped. So this is that key value. So both the things are available to you depending upon what you want to use at the backend. You can use any of these. And you also have an option of lifespan, which says 25 over here because we defined 25. So now if I go into any other intent, I will have to create a new intent. Like I can say college opening. When so these are three training phases which I have added, and it is mapped into the college opening intent. Now you can see again it has already again captured the course name. You make it required. You enter the course name, and now you have the option to respond. So there might be a like you want to show a response, like whatever the user has entered as a parameter, you want to show him as response in the response part as well. So like if we see in this college opening, so you want to like show the response dedicated for a course. So like you can say college for XYZ will open on 1st January 2022. So that XYZ is basically the course name which comes up. So you want to show that as well in the user response. So what you can do is you just type and you just type the name of the variable which you have defined over here, and you just click on save. So you will not you will use it using dollar sign, because dollar is something which is coming, which is the value. Dollar course name you can enter over here. You can just click on save and btech cs open. So you can see the response now has my parameter as a variable entered over here as. So because obviously you don't want to hard code that value, because every user will be coming up with a different course name. And this course name is something which should be dynamic, and you can pick up this value using the dollar sign in Dialogflow. So if somebody types open BTech Civil, so you can see now College for BTech Civil will open on 1st Jan. So this variable is something which is coming from the user query only. And this value which you can see is the entity value, not the user input value. It is the entity key value. Coming back to the context part, if somebody types in context, and if somebody, like, in the next query, if somebody asks like fees for BTech CS. Now, if I ask about college opening date, so ideally it should answer me for BTech CS only, because my first question was BTech Civil, and that value is now captured in the context. But currently I have not used the context in college opening intent. So if I now type open, it will ask me for the course name. Ideally, it should have been answered. It should have answered for BTech CS. So what we will do is, in this value, in this section, which you want the dialog flow should automatically take from the context, there is an option of, if you click over three dots over here, there is an option of default value. Default value is something which you can define for a parameter. This default value will be picked up if the user has not entered any parameter. So in some cases, you might want to move ahead with the user's input. So like if you're asking about user input, like, please tell me your mobile number. So if a person is asking for a mobile number, and if you have made it as a required parameter, then the user might not be entering and the user might not be entering. So you can define any value in default value, like 0000. You can define. So if the value is missing, the parameter is missing, the default value is picked up. So over here, we want the dialog flow to pick up the value which is there in the context. So the value in the context, uh, this can be picked up using the hash. It is a basic, like, this syntax should be maintained. So the first thing is hash, then followed by the context name, then dot, and then you have to define the variable name. There might be multiple variables in one context, so you have to define which variable value should it pick up. As soon as you are done, you just click on close. You just click on save. So if I say fees for BTech CS, it will show me fees for BTech CS. Now if I say open, it is now showing me, oh, college for BTech CS will open up. Because now it has taken up the value from the context. The context had a value of BTech CS, which was asked in the fees intent. And this intent will be, like, this context is active for next 25 inputs. Currently, I have entered only one input, which is asking about the opening date. But now 25, now from 25 to 24, for next 24 inputs, the user is still, the context is still active. But if you see in the, uh, but if I define the same context over here, and if I define the lifespan of 25 over here, after it enters this intent, the lifespan of the context will be reset to 25 again rather and from instead of using 24. So I have created the context. I have overwritten the context in this case again. So the lifespan gets reset. If you don't want to use it, then it is up to you. If you don't want to create that context again in this, you cannot do it. It's up to you. But if somebody is if you don't define it in, like, if you define it in one intent and if you don't define it in another intent, if the fees in, like, if you have fees and college intent, if you define it for college fees one, not in the opening date one. So if the person enters into the fees intent, only then the context will get activated. If like, if there are 10 other intents and it enters in any of other, it will not get activated. So in this intent in which you define the output context, only for that, only if that intent is triggered, the context gets activated across the board. If the user never enters that intent, the context will never get activated. Any doubts in context? Like, this is a very important and like one of the complicated features of that.
Sir, I have a doubt. Hello.
Yes, yes, tell me.
So, sir, if someone asks for first, he asks for the fees of BTech CS, and then the next question goes for the fees of BTech Civil, and then the college opening for BTech Civil. Only the college opening. So, does that context reset to civil?
So you're saying somebody comes up and asks fees for BTech CS, and the next question is opening date for BTech Civil.
No, sir. First, the fees for BTech CS, and then fees for BTech Civil. And the next question is college opening. So now the context is for BTech CS or Civil, because
Simple.
he has
Because
to
it has overwritten. It will override. Because if you type for the BTech, like the first input is BTech CS, your parameter of course name is BTech CS. Now if you type BTech Civil, the course name gets overwritten. Context will also get overwritten. So now your the context and the parameter course name has value of BTech Civil. And then if you ask opening date, it will answer for BTech Civil only.
Okay, sir.
Any other doubts? So the next thing is basically which you can use is, which we will cover is a like a follow-up intent. Follow-up intent is something which again works on context part here. And if I create a follow-up intent, it will ask me for Like there are some predefined follow-up intents, repeat, previous, next, cancel, yes, no, fallback, and then you have custom. Custom is something which if you want to create your own fallback intent, and if you want to use predefined dialog flow, then you can use that as well. So if somebody types, uh, so basically you can use them in scenarios like confirmation of user if you want. So if somebody asks, please confirm my admission. So then you will have to take a confirmation from them. Are you sure? Yes or no? So in that case, you can create an intent which is a follow-up intent. Follow-up intent is useful because it will get only triggered. So you can consider it as a parent-child relationship. So the parent will be the main intent. The follow-up intent will be the child intent. So if the follow-up intent will only get triggered if the parent intent is active. So if somebody comes up and says yes, the follow-up intent will not pick up. The training phase is of the follow-up intent is yes only, but still it will not get activated. Whereas if somebody comes up and says, please confirm my admission, then he enters yes. Only then that follow-up intent will be triggered. Because the follow-up intent is only getting activated if the previous intent is the parent one. So if I show you over here, so this is a like the basic one I have created. Uh, confirm admission. So if you can see, I have just entered confirm admission as an input. The dialog flow has mapped it into admission confirmation intent, and it has responded with me. Are you sure? Yes or no? This was the response which I had it. Now, if I create a follow-up intent, admission opening, you can just click on. You can just as you move your cursor over the intent, it will show up an option of add follow-up intent. It will ask me which follow-up intent you want to create. I just click on yes. It will create that intent for me. Now you can see an arrow, and there is some space between the blue dot and the confirmation, like the intent. So this shows that this is the follow-up intent, and this is the follow-up intent just of the intent which is just above it in the list. So if I go into the confirmation, you can see like for as I selected yes, which is predefined in Dialogflow, it has all the like they have already entered some training phases which are like mostly used with the just in this kind of scenarios of yes. So yes, okay, why not? Yes, I do it. And then you have an option of it's similar like the intent structure, everything is exactly the same of a normal intent. It's just that when this intent will be triggered is something which is handled and which is something which you are controlling using the follow-up functionality. Your admission is confirmed. If I go into the admission, you can see a drop down has come up over here. If I click, only then that intent shows up. If I see into the confirmation intent, you can see a output context has come up. This is something which I didn't create. Dialogflow has automatically created it because a follow-up intent is created. And the lifespan is by default 2. I can change it to 1. Just save it. And if you see in the follow-up intent, there is an input context which is created. This input connect, if you see, the name of this input context is exactly the same of what the output context of the parent uh, intent is. So this parent intent, this context, input context is helping the dialog flow understand that this is a follow-up intent, and this should only be triggered if the parent context is active. So if I entered into the admission one, if you remember, the training phrase of the follow-up intent was yes. I will create another one, test, and then you have yes in this testing. So this is a small testing intent which I have created, but the training phrase in this is also yes. So ideally now I have two intents which tells me which have the same training phrase as yes. One is this test intent and one is the follow-up intent which was created as a confirmation of admission. So if I type yes right now, it is going into the test intent because currently the follow-up intent has not been activated. Whereas if I type confirm admission, now you can see the follow-up intent has been activated. Now if I type yes, it has gone into the context, follow-up intent. Great, your admission is confirmed. So this is the functionality of a follow-up intent. It will only get triggered if the parent intent is triggered. And if you remember, I had said that value of output context of the parent intent, the admission confirmation intent as 1. So if the immediate one is yes, like because it is active only for one input, if the immediate is yes, only then this follow-up will be triggered. You can set it as 2 also. So if you want that user should have two options to enter the next one. In any next two conversations or next two inputs, if one of them is my follow-up intent training phase, then it is okay for me. So you can change that lifespan value as 2. But in this case, I wanted it in the direct answer because it's a confirmation which I am asking from the user. It is of no use to me if the user is confirming it after 5 or 10 inputs. So I have entered it as one input, one lifespan only, and this one lifespan will be helping me to confirm that this is yes confirmed from the user side. Now if I again type yes, so you can see that the context was only having one lifespan of only one, and because of that lifespan one, I had already entered one, and that context was now expired. Now it is back to the normal phase only, and then you entered the training phase yes. It is now categorizing it into the testing because the context is now removed. Had the value been 2 of the lifespan, if I had entered yes again, it would have again mapped me to that because still the context is active. And Dialogflow will always prioritize the follow-up intent over a normal intent if the context is active. Any doubts in context or follow-up intents? Like this is a very important concept. This you need to get clarity on because if you are looking to develop complex bots, then you will definitely have to use these functionalities. And like if you get a job as a chatbot developer using dialog, then without a context, you will not be able to create a good bot. And there can be multiple contexts for in a particular intent also. You can create more than one context also. So if you want that I want to capture, create the my course intent where you have to capture the name also and I have to take it forward as well. So you can always define more context. There is no need to create only one content. Any doubts?
No, sir, it's clear.
So now I will just delete this part, the test part, test intent. The next part is called as like when you created the chatbot initially, it created two intents for me. One was default welcome and one was default fallback. So default fallback is an intent which is automatically created when the Dialogflow agent is created, and default fallback is something which will be mapped, which will be triggered when the Dialogflow is not confident enough to map the user input in any of the other defined intents. So like currently you are working with the admission chatbot and tomorrow someone comes to your bot and says, tell me the cricket score. Obviously, tell me the cricket score is something which is out of scope for your bot. It will not be able to handle it. And it is obviously not recommended that you don't respond to that query. So all such scenarios will fall into the fallback intent. Fallback intent, and like obviously you cannot create a fallback intent on your own because you don't know what the user is entering. What will you enter in your training phase? Somebody comes up and asks what is a cricket source. Somebody comes up and asks what is the weather. So there are infinite number of sentences which you can create, which you will be, which you will not be able to handle because it is out of scope of your bot. So that will be something which will be handled by the fulfillment fallback intent. This fallback intent doesn't have any training phases, as you can see. Training phases are not there because training phases it is not possible for you to add training phases. Anything which is not in my category, in my scope is going into the fallback intent, and there are no and defined number of fallback like training phases which you can enter, but you have a response section. This response section is something which you can edit. Dialogflow has already entered some responses for you. If you want to use them as it is, it's up to you. If you don't want to use them, you can edit it, you can delete them. You just like if what my bot is currently saying is if I type something like cricket score, obviously I have not entered this as my any of the training phases. It has gone into the fallback intent. You can see over here the intent classification, default fallback intent, and it has given me one of the responses which was entered over here. I didn't get that. Can you repeat? This was the training phase which came after which this was the response which came up over here. Again, if I type something like uh, football score, now it will give me some other response. Can you say that again? Because Dialogflow has entered 12 responses for you, and what would be the response for my user input? It would be any of them. It would be a random selection of these 12. And you can see that they are all going into the fallback intent. Fallback intent is something which you cannot like you cannot define training phases. So everything which is out of scope is going into this. The next part which comes, which is an important part, is how confident or how strong you want to make your bot. So obviously this is all working on machine learning, right? You don't know what is the backend, but you know you can control some of the features of that backend. So if I type, and yes, one more thing is important. You might be thinking that there might be hundreds of ways a user can ask a question, and those hundred of it's not possible for me to define all those hundred variations Obviously, there might be some example of a training phrase which you will be missing and you won't be able to enter, but the third person who is typing in, he can enter it in a different language. How many number of variations you will enter as a training phrase? You don't have to worry on that part. Dialogflow is very smart enough to understand, like if there is a change in the language, it will still be able to classify it into the correct intent. That is something with Dialogflow, the natural language part comes into picture. It will always try to understand and try to map it into one of the intent which have been defined by. So you can see that there are three intents of three training phases which I have entered in the fees category. Uh, so I have entered BTech CS fees. So the training phase which you can see over here, which I am entering, fees BTech CS. Over here on the top right, you can see fees BTech CS. This is something which is not defined in my training phase. Ideally, if you think from a basic chatbot kind of structure, ideally that chatbot will not be able to categorize into this category because it's not a match. But Dialogflow is very smart in order to capture this because it works on machine learning, not on string matching. So it has classified into the fees intent. Now you know that this is something which is making the Dialogflow more powerful than your normal Python-based string matching or any other chatbot available in the market. Many other platforms help offer this functionality, but not all of them. And if you see in the diagnostic info, you can see confidence. Yeah, so you can see an option called as entrant confidence score. Confidence score is basically you must have worked with machine learning, right? Have you guys worked with machine learning?
Yes, sir.
So in machine learning, when you predict a new testing observation which comes into your picture, you pass it into the machine learning model and you get a prediction. You always get the probability of every prediction, and then based on that probability, you map it into one of the classes which were your like in your training data. So that probability is something which Dialogflow is giving you over here. Based on the user input, how confident or what is the probability of mapping it into the phase intent. It will always pick up the probability for all the intent it's getting calculated. It will always pick up whichever is the maximum one. So you can say model is 67% confident that this intent, user input belongs to the fees intent. But if I enter the exact same, if I enter the exact same input which is there in the training phase, now now this will be very high. So yeah, you can see it is one only because it's a perfect match. It's a perfect match, so it is always getting it will definitely get into the fees intent, and the score is one, so 100% it is confident that this is in this as it's an exact match. A scenario in which will be not you will not be able to just a second. Yeah, there might be a scenario in which you want to like currently you are using the default value. If you go into the settings of this bot, there are multiple things which you can change over here. So one thing is basically this is a description which is coming. This description is something which you can use like to add on some more information. This will not be displayed to any of them, any of your users. It is something for your understanding. Then you can change the time zone if you want, which we had said using while creating the bot. These are some other additional features which you don't want to, which you are not concerned as of now. And then you have the delete agent if you want to delete this bot. Just click on delete agent. Then the second is the languages. If you want to create in any additional language, you can select that over here. So as I said in the initial part, we can create multiple languages. If you are not okay with only English, then you can select any other language also, and this will be created. And then the next option is the ML setting. ML setting is something which you are giving the bot an which you are giving, which you can change. So, like if you see the section which is called ML classification threshold, this is something which I was talking about in terms of the confidence. If you are very rigid in your part where no, I want the user to enter only the first, only the exact matches, otherwise I will not answer the user. So you can increase this value. So currently it is set as zero point 0.3. This zero point 0.3 means anything in any observation, any user input, if the dialog flow is confident more than 30%, that intent should be mapped. Like that should be the classification answer. If I want, I can change it to any value. If you see as 0.67, which was the intent, which was the classification score when I entered a different training phase. So if I set that as this value as zero point 0.7 and the score of that was 0.67, so that will fail. It will not be classified into freeze intent and it will go to the fallback intent. Are you getting my point? This is the basically the probability score which you are trying to control, how strong or how confident your bot should be in order to classify a user input into one of the intent. So this is by default set as zero point 0.3. You can uh, change it if you want, but in majority of the scenarios, it works perfectly fine in zero point 0.3 case. This would be more useful if you have training phrases which are very close to each other in two or more intents. So, like you need to work through that number, how much confident you want to be in one of those intent, it will be classified. Then you also have an option of automatic spell correction. If the person has entered some incorrect spelling, it will automatically get corrected. So you can just turn it on, turn it off based on whatever your requirement is. Then the next option is automatic retraining. So currently, if you have noticed, I was after making any changes, I was clicking on the save button on the top. If you turn this on, this you don't need to click on the save button. It will after every change, it will keep on getting saved. And then you have an automatic validation. Validation are some things which are with small checks which are already defined by Dialogflow. So if you turn this on, this will keep on start giving you warnings if you have any error, if there is any error in your intent or any other part of the dialog. Then you have import export. Import export is something which you can use in order to share your Dialogflow agent. If somebody has created a Dialogflow agent and you want to get that in your system, you can export. You can click on export as zip. It will download. It will be downloaded. It will download a zip file for you to email it to any other person. And when you have a zip file, you just click on import from zip. If you click on import from zip, it will ask for the zip file, and the exact same Dialogflow agent will be there in your system as well. Then you have environments. If you want to create more environments, manage versions and everything, you can do it using this. Then you have speech. Basically, this is more for Google Assistant part. If you are developing a Google Assistant bot, then this is for speech. Then again, you have an option of share. If two people are working on the same bot, you can like make them like currently you can see I am the admin over here. If you want, if you have somebody else's email ID, you can click on reviewer or developer based on what rights you want to give to that user. You enter the email ID of that person, click on add, click on save. That person can simultaneously work on this Dialogflow agent. So you as an admin have all the control, but now as a developer, he also has the editing rights. He will not be able to delete the agent, but everything else he can do. And then you have advanced section, which is the sentiment analysis. This is a paid functionality. You will have to add a credit card in order to get this activated, and like it is a build part. So like there's no need until you are working on something very specific and which you want to extract the sentiment, unless other than that it is fine. So if you do, so this is all the settings which you can handle from your settings tab. And if you want to change any function, any of the functionalities, you can do it from here. Entities we have covered. Then is knowledge base. So now for knowledge base is by default not active in your agent. If you create a new agent, it says how you can activate it. It is a beta feature which is still under development. So in order to use this beta feature, you need to enable the beta functionality, which can be done through the settings tab. And in this, you can see a option beta features, which says enable beta features and API. You just turn that toggle button on, save it. If I go into the knowledge section now, it is now open for. So knowledge is something which I would not recommend you to use because it's still in beta phase. Beta phase, it doesn't work well in every scenario. There might be some scenarios which you can see that it's failing, not working well for you. So create a knowledge base. You click on create a knowledge base. Knowledge base is something like suppose you're working with a suppose you have a website live. You have a website. You own a website, and obviously majority of the websites have a FAQ tab in their website. And as a developer, when you were creating a website, you had defined hundreds of FAQs in that. So like if I see on maybe Flipkart, there would be some training FAQs. Yeah, here are FAQs. Mm, So you can see this is basically a website which was created, and in this you can see there are FAQs which are defined. Who is referring, some of the key features, what is the product. So these are a set of question and answer which they have already defined. So what Dialogflow offers is that if there is, so it offers, I'll just have to read testing knowledge base. If I click on save, what Dialogflow offers is it offers two types of knowledge bases. Knowledge base is something which it tells that if you already have some knowledge, share it with Dialogflow, and Dialogflow is smart enough to learn from that knowledge. So there are two types of document which you can create. Like it offers you different types of functionalities, or you can say features, which can be used in order to understand the knowledge. So you just have to define the name of the document. Name of the document can be anything based on your needs. Uh, you can say FAQ. Knowledge type is something which is FAQ or extractive question answering. So if it is FAQ, you just click on FAQ, and it offers you two types of inputs which is accepted. So one is HTML, one is CSV. So what does it does mean is if you select HTML, then you just have to provide the URL of the FAQ page, and Dialogflow will extract everything from that. If you have a Excel file which is having set of question and answers, then you can upload that CSV file also, and the Dialogflow will be able to extract the functionalities from there, whatever it needs to learn. So if I select HTML, it will ask me for the URL, and the URL I just have to copy paste from here, just paste it over here, and click on create. So what Dialogflow knowledge base would do is it will go to this URL, check what are the set of questions and answers it can learn from. It will now get trained on that part. Now, if I go into Dialogflow and if I type any of this question, it will answer it for me. It cannot be tested in this agent, but if I see it in the response, the JSON response, you can see it has answered it for me. FAQ question was this, which I entered, and this is the answer which it has given me. So you will not be able to test Dialogflow knowledge base in the right testing console, but you can see it in the JSON format. This is basically the API which is getting it. And what is refin? Ref loan. This is something which I never created an intent for and never trained the bot on. I had created a knowledge base for this, and it was smart enough to learn from that knowledge base. So this is where the knowledge base comes into picture. I would not recommend you to use this functionality much because firstly you will not be able to test it over here. Secondly, you might face difficulties when you connect it to any external agent because obviously you will not be handing it over to the users in this form. It will be some interface on which you will be connecting your dialog. The next part is the fulfillment part. Fulfillment we will cover later because this is the most like complex part and important one too. Next is integrations. So integrations tab gives you an option to integrate your Dialogflow with multiple channels. So you can connect it with your Facebook Messenger, Telegram. Um, it offers you a web UI as well. So all these options are available. Whichever you want to create, connected Skype, Cake, Twitter. So there are multiple things in which you can with which you can connect to your Dialogflow. You can also connect to your IVR systems. IVR basically you must have gone through some customer care service in your lifetime. When the person like there is a recorded voice which is going press one for this, two for this. So this that IVR is there. So these are the services which are giving you IVR options. Dialogflow, Avya, Signal Wire. So you have to create account on these with platform. Like there obviously a payment attached to it. Based on the payment, you can just connect your Dialogflow. If you click on any of these, so like if I want to get connected to Telegram, and it will ask me for the Telegram token, and you just enter that token, you just click on start Telegram is connected. If you want, I can show you one Telegram integration quickly. I know, like if you want to know how you can connect, you can always search on the Google how to connect Dialogflow with Telegram or whatever service you want to get connected to. It will give you a option. It will like there's a good documentation of all the scenarios. So like if I go to Telegram web, So how you can create Telegram is basically a Telegram bot is there is a token which you need to generate. So if you click on this is basically the Telegram uh, Telegram bot father is a Telegram user. It's created by Telegram itself. So this will help you create a chatbot. So you just have to click start. You just have to type slash new bot. If you open it in your Telegram chat, it would be more user friendly because they have buttons in that as well. So you can type my. So it's asking me for the bot name. I can type admissions chatbot. Now it's asking for the username and so you can see the bot has been created and this is your API token. As soon as you create an API token, just copy this, go to Dialogflow, click on Telegram, there are also options with which you can connect your Dialogflow with WhatsApp. WhatsApp, you will have to take a WhatsApp API from the different service providers which are available in the market, like Video, Gupshup. There are multiple available in the market based on the pricing. You can select any of them, and that WhatsApp bot will be live for you, and it will be connected to your dialog. You click on this Telegram, paste in your token which bot father had returned. Just click on start, and your dialog flow will be connected to your Telegram. Go to Telegram, just whatever the name of your bot was, just search for that bot. You can see this was a dialog flow response. B is for BTech CS. It is responding what we have trained. If I go into the dialog flow, if I just change anything over there, now if I type hi again, you can see the value is changed. It is a one-time connection only. You just don't have to connect or change the connection every time you make any changes. It will automatically get picked up. So is it clear now? Like Dialogflow, Telegram integration also.
Yes, sir.
In the integrations, you have a different integration as well. If you want to use a web demo, you want to check on the website, this is a URL which is given. Like a Dialogflow Messenger is also there. This will give me a web UI. this is a web UI also which Dialogflow offers. If you want to integrate Dialogflow like uh, uh, like similar to this bot in your website, you just copy paste this code, paste it in your HTML website code, and you will get Dialogflow over there. So this is how you can add a web bot in your agent. So multiple integrations are there based on what platform you are building this for. You can create it for you. Slack is also there, so multiple things are there. The next part is basically analytics. Analytics is something which is a small analytics which it is giving for you based on the user queries which are coming in. Currently, it is not live. Much information is there, and there is a delay in the updation, so it takes time to get updated. But after your bot is live, after like suppose for 10-15 days, it will start coming up over here. Then you have some pre-built agents which are available already there in the Dialogflow repository. So like if you are looking something for banking, car vending, so they have given a description as well as the name. So if you think your use case is similar to what is there in this, you will be able to use them directly. So this is something which you can like just import, and using this import, you will be able to make changes in this and make this your own bot. So there you can see a lot of things coming in. If you are looking for something like food ordering or some food delivery, so you have a food delivery bot over here. Create and manage food and delivery order, drink orders. You can just click on this import and you will get the bot in your system. The third one, like the last option, is small talk. Small talk is something which you will not be able, like, small talk is basically defined as a term in chatbot where you are creating some small conversation, like somebody comes up and on the bot and asks, how are you? And who made you? Who is a developer? How are you feeling today? Like basically the small conversation which you might be having in with your Google Assistant also. So that is something which you can just turn on. If you turn this on, you will be like somebody comes up and say, if somebody comes up on a bot says, how are you right now? It is not getting what you are saying. It's going into the fallback intent because it's not a training phase. After you enable this, somebody comes up and says, how are you? It is not there. I am doing well. Thanks. Now it has gone into the small talk. This is a very general conversation if you want to have with your bot, and if you want the bot to handle those conversations, then you just turn on small talk. This small talk will not make the conversation more human-like, and the bot will be able to respond to the user in a more general way rather than as a machine. And then you have the option of documents also if you want to go into Dialogflow documentation, understand what all things are there. And in the parameters also, one more thing I just wanted to say that in entities there are a lot of predefined ones also, which are already there in the Dialogflow system, and you can use them as it is. If it is not working well for you, you can define your own entity. So like if you are trying to extract mobile numbers from user, you are asking mobile number. You have created a registration form and you are asking for a mobile number, email ID. So these are already defined because email ID should have some combination like at the rate dot should be there. It's a mandatory thing. So without that, you should not pass it. So those can be handled using the sys.email entity. If you define any variable as email entity, all these check will be checked. And even if Only if all these checks are passed, only then it will be stored into the email one. Otherwise, it will keep on asking, please enter an email ID, please enter an email. So basically, it's a check in terms of entity. You don't have to create that check on your own as an entity because Dialogflow has already done that for you. Same is for currency name, Dialogflow, like currency name, duration, time, numbers. So like if you're asking what is your age, you don't want the user to enter ABC. You obviously want a number. So that check is also there. Time. If you just want to capture anything, whatever the user enters, so like somebody comes up and types, your bot asks, what is your name? You cannot create an entity for your name, but obviously you want to capture that name. So you can use sys.any. Any is anything user enters should be saved and should be captured as my entity. So you cannot define a list of entities as name. There are millions of names across the globe. How many names will you enter in your entities section? So for that you can use sys.any. Sys.any will help you save that value, and whatever the user enters, you take that as the value and save it in your name. So zip codes, may, there might be some scenarios where you will not be, it will not be working well for you because these all are trained on US data. So like if zip code, if you take zip code, so this is the zip code. So in India we have a PIN code of six digits, and if you take it as zip code, it is on US data, so it will trained on 5 digits. So it is not a good check for you as a Indian user. So we prefer not to use this. You can use any other like number or anything. And same is for name. There is another intent which is called as person name or first name that will be able to capture the first name or person name for US citizen names, but you will not be able to. It will not work well on Indian names. Again, that is not recommended. Yeah. So says dot person, a given name. So like if you add check like Adam, Peter, it will be captured. But if you like enter like Samad or something like that, it will not get filled back. So these are the intents or entities which we have which we have looked on. Any doubts till now?
No, sir.
Samal sir, if you require a break, then we can take 10 to 15 minutes break also. According to your convenience, you can take.
Yeah, we can take a break of 10 minutes. Like it's 11:50, we can resume at 12.
Yes, sir, we can.
Okay, we can resume at 12 then.
Okay. Friends, we are having 10 minutes break and uh, don't leave the meeting. Just stay here only. Okay, we will come back again at 12. Sir, can you start?
Yes.
Yes. Students, are you there? Yes or no? Please give some response.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Yes. So, sir is going to start. Please give attention. Sir, you can start.
Hello? Yeah. So the next thing is basically we will look at the part where we are trying to uh, make the bot more interactive. So like suppose we are in the scenario when like some of you, someone from your side will be asked that if somebody wants to give a response based on the course name. So like if somebody comes up and says, what is the fees for BTech Computer Science and what is the fees for BTech Civil? Obviously, you don't want to give the same response to the user. If you are giving the response from Dialogflow, then you are hard coding the answer and you are not giving you are giving the same answer for every user input which comes in and gets mapped into that particular intent. So what Dialogflow offers is Dialogflow gives you an option which is called as fulfillment, which you can see over here. If you click on fulfillment, this is like a very powerful feature in which it offers Dialogflow offers you to take all your information which comes in from the user side outside to any server. So there are two options in that. One is webhook and one is inline editor. So inline editor is something if you are good in Node.js, then you can enable this. It will give you an option to make all the changes in this part. This is a paid service. Uh, you need to add a credit card in your Google account. Only then this will be enabled. So like it is asking me to add billing required, and then only it will let me do this part. So the other thing, if you are not okay with Node.js and you don't want to enter your credit card, you don't want to work within Dialogflow, what you can do is you can create a webhook. Webhook is something which is a functionality. Whenever a user comes into, like whenever a user input comes into Dialogflow, it will pass all the information to this webhook URL. Webhook URL is something which you will be defining. This webhook URL is uh, needs to be running on some server. So this server can be a local server. It can be hosted somewhere like on GCP or AWS, Heroku, or like any other Big Daddy, GoDaddy, any service you can use. In that service, you will have to create a webhook API, and then you will be able to connect Dialogflow with your backend. And in intents, for every intent, you have an option to enable that intent to hit the web fulfillment. If you go in any intent, if you go at the most, like the bottommost section, you will see an option of fulfillment. So one is enable for webhook call for this intent, enable webhook call for slot fill. So there are two options in this. If you turn on this option, whatever the input comes in from the user side, and if it gets classified into the fees intent, all that information will hit your webhook URL. If this toggle is off, then it will everything will happen within dialog. Your service, your information for that particular intent will not go out. You can set it fulfillment on or off. You can set for every intent individually. You have to set it individually. Otherwise, if it is getting your toggle is off, and if it is getting classified into the fees intent, your information is not going out from Dialogflow. You are doing it within the Dialogflow only, and the response will be the text response which we have added over here. But if you turn this on, this text response is of no use for Dialogflow now. Now it is expecting the webhook call to do some processing and return back the response to Dialogflow, which will in order go back and be shown to the user. The same thing is for slot filling. Slot filling is something which is for for the parameters. If the parameter is missing, currently what Dialogflow is doing is it is checking for the required parameters and the prompt is coming from Dialogflow only. But if you turn that on, then if the parameter of course name is missing, it will hit your webhook URL. This prompt, please tell me a course name, will be of no use to Dialogflow. So this is the part where fulfillment comes into picture. What fulfillment will do is it will hit my webhook URL. For webhook URL, you can create it in any language. It's just that it should be a server. It should be hosted on a public server, and the webhook like Dialogflow should be like it. This code should be able to accept a post request. So there are two types of APIs. One is the post, one is get. So I hope you guys have worked with APIs. Like, have you worked with APIs or do you have idea about what Flask is in Python?
No, sir.
So, like, you guys are comfortable with Python, right?
Yes, sir. Compatible with Python.
So in Python, there's a library called as Flask. Flask is basically a library which helps you develop web APIs or web interfaces using Python. So if you want, like, it is possible for you to create a complete website using Flask. So all the web related interactions will happen using Flask. So there are two libraries. One is Flask, one is Django. Django is more for a pure web development front, whereas Flask is more for the API front. So we will be using Flask because we are need to interact with API. We don't want to interact. We don't want to create a website. We want to create APIs so that Flask and Python can communicate with each other. So what we will do is this is a basic, like most basic code of Flask. First, what you do is you import Flask. You import multiple functions from Flask. One is request, one is make response, one is JSONify. And then you have an option which is this is not required. The next part is you initialize the Flask application and it is very defined under the variable app. So whenever you open a website, so like if I open a website, uh, so when you open a website on the top URL, you can see the website URL name. Whereas if I go into any of the section, you can see another substring has come up which says slash and a string. If I go into products, you can see the page is changing, the URL is changing. This URL is something which is very important when you are developing APIs because this main URL, which is the website URL, remains same for the complete website. But based on this part, you are able to differentiate what the user request is. And if nothing is defined over here, then it's a default URL, which is the home page. Same is in our case. This is the part app.route. App.route is the part where you are defining what is that substring. Currently, it is slash only. If it is slash, then it means it's a home page. It will be hit only when the default URL is hit. So if the default URL is hit, then it will just return a simple string which is hello world. Whereas if I have created another substring which is slash API. It can be anything. You can create any name over here. I have created it slash API, and this slash API is will be appended in my default local URL. And inside this, I have defined different methods. So it is capable of handling both get and post. Get is something when you are passing a variable within the URL, and post is something when you are encrypting while sending the URL or hitting the URL. Dialogflow always works on post, so you have to create a post request. You have to like mention this line, and then this is a basic simple Python function inside this route, and then this is a predefined like this is a string which you need. It's a syntax which you need to enter in order to send back the response, and then based on this string, your application starts running. When we connect it to Dialogflow, it will make more sense to you if it is not right now. If I just run this code, this will just right now run on my local server, my local host. If I open this, it will just print hello world because currently I am on the default page. And this string is coming from this part. It's on the default page. If I change something over here, then there would be no default page and it will show me an error that there is no default page. And like currently I have entered something like ABC. Now in the URL, if I append ABC, it will take me to hello world. So you can see the default page is not showing anything, it is not found. But if I type ABC over here, it will take me to hello world. Because this ABC is the function which is calling, this function is getting called when the URL is appended with this string. Whereas if I am at the local, there is no local or home page string defined in the code, hence it's showing an error. So this is a basic Flask application. If Dialogflow, like we for next step is to basically connect it with Dialogflow. In order to connect it with Dialogflow, we need to host it somewhere. It's a local. Currently, it's working on a local system. Dialogflow cannot hit your local system, so it should be on a public server. There are multiple options available. So for a quick deployment check, you can work with ngrok. What ngrok does is ngrok will create, uh, like convert your local host into a public server. So if I type ngrok.exe http, this 5000 is the port number on which my code is running. So if you can see 127.0.0.1 colon 5000. This is the default port for Windows. If your 5000 is occupied, Windows will automatically deploy it on any other port. But what port it is running on, you can check from the URL when it starts running. In this ngrok HTTP, I just have to define the port number. It will give me a web URL. I'll just run. So you can see there are two URLs which it has returned. One is HTTP, the same URL. One is the HTTPS with the same URL. So what will happen is, like if I hit this URL which ngrok has given to me, there is some change in the application. So basically, what it will do is it will create. This is a public URL which has been created, and it can be accessed by anyone in the world. So this application will help you create this in Zero. So next step, what we'll do is I'll just check if Dialogflow is able to access. So, like, do you want me to repeat? Like, I think you must have lost what I did. So, like, do you want me to repeat or is it fine?
No, sir, it's okay. Got it.
So basically, what I have done is the URL, which is this URL. This URL has now made my local host as a public server. My like system has become is a public server now. The local code, anything running on my local host will be is being exposed to a public server, and anyone with this URL can hit my local. So what I have done is I have gone into Dialogflow into the fulfillment tab. This fulfillment tab, I have enabled a webhook. I have entered the URL followed by the slash API slash, which is defined over here. So any request which is coming into the fulfillment part of Dialogflow, it will be passed on to this local, passed on to this NDROC server, and NDROC server is connected to my local host. Hence, everything will be coming on my local host. And in the feast intent, I have turned on the fulfillment for webhook fulfillment. If anything, if I type anything over here, fees for BTech CS, you can see right now it is not returning any response because we have not set anything from the backend. But in the code, the Flask code, you can see a complete JSON request has hit my server. This request has a lot of things. I'll just paste it. So you can see a lot of things are coming and hitting my server. So based on whatever I want from this, I can just extract it because it's a JSON object and it works on key like similar to what how dictionary works in Python. So if I can see, firstly, I need to find out the intent name because based on the intent name only, I will be able to take a different action. Because if the intent name is fees, I have to tell the fees. If the intent name is college opening, I have to tell a date. So the first thing is to basically extract the key intent, the intent name. So if you see in this um, intent, there is an object called as intent, which has display name as a value, and inside that display value is the name of the intent which we defined in dialog. So if I go into query result, basically it's a nested dictionary. So you need to keep on going into the different keys in order to reach that particular value. So now again it's a dictionary. If I go into Mm, intent. If I go into display name, I have the value of the intent name. In my code, I have a function called as results. If I check if the request query name is fees, return. In order to return, you need to check what needs to be returned from here. So for testing, what is the value? Fees. If I, you just need to find out how the dialog flow is expecting the response. If you want to see how dialog flow is expecting the response, you just click on diagnostic info. You just click on diagnostic info and you will see a message called as fulfillment messages. This is the part where your dialog flow is showing you the response, right? So you just copy this and you just type in this over here. And in this fees, instead of fees, you can type anything like sure, I will help you. So currently I'm just putting a simple response, which is a simple string, but later we will be editing this string. So if I now run this code and now check what is the response. Sure, I will help you with it. This is coming from the fulfillment, not from dialog. So you can see the intent when as soon as I entered the feast for BTech CS, what it does is how the pipeline works is it will categorize it into the feast intent. It will check if the fulfillment is on or not. If the fulfillment is on, it will hit the fulfillment. As soon as it hits the fulfillment, it will check if the intent name is feast. Then I have to return this. If the intent name is not feast, then we will be creating some other variable intent name. If the intent name is like college opening, this was another variable, another intent which we had created. We will just copy this and so if I just run this now for the fees, it is this. For the college opening, it is this response. So if I go into the college opening intent, I will have to turn on the fulfillment over here. And if there might be a possibility that your server fails, there is an error in your code, or Dialogflow is not able to uh, get the response back from the server, then if you have defined anything in the text response, that will come up as the answer. So it is basically like a failure protection scenario where your Dialogflow server was failing, but still you don't want the user to stop working from the bot, or you don't want to end the conversation abruptly. So you can just define any message over here, which you can say that it's an error message. So like suppose server error I can define is try again later. So this is a message which will be shown because the server webhook has fulfillment has failed, and in order to show something to the user, you can define something in the text response. So if the fulfillment fails, the text response answer will come up to the user. If you don't define anything, then it would be a blank conversation and the user will not be able to see any message. So if I type college or BTech CS, so you can see this is the college opening small coming from fulfillment Python. This is coming from our backend. This is not coming from Dialogflow. And if I close the server, so like the server is not running, obviously the Dialogflow will not be able to communicate with server and it will be an error. Now if I take fees for BTech CS, ideally it should have returned sure I will help you with it if the server was working perfectly fine. But now as the server is closed, the request will fail, but it will go into the text response, which is defined over here. So you can see server error has come. This will only happen if the response from the fulfillment has failed, and if the fulfillment response is working fine, then you will not be seeing this text response to any any time in the user conversation. Any doubts over here? Like this is something which you anyways have to use if you are using any bot, because within Dialogflow you will never be able to create scenarios which are more static. If you are creating only a simple FAQ bot with 5-10 questions, only then your scenario works well for within working within Dialogflow, because for every user you have same answer. But in majority of the cases, you will have to work with fulfillment, because without fulfillment, you will not be able to do anything. So suppose you are a college bot only, and you are trying to save asking user to register on your bot, or you are trying to capture uh, phone number, or anything, email ID, name of the user. So after you capture that, you need to save it somewhere, in some database, so that you have that user information ready with you. So you have to use a fulfillment. You use that fulfillment, you turn that fulfillment on that for that intent. You have all the parameters at your backend, and then you can save it in any of the use cases. So like if you see in this, uh, if you see that there are parameters also. So you can see there is a parameter, you extract the name, phone number, email ID of that person, and you can save it in your database. So this is where the fulfillment comes into picture. Any interaction which you want the user to do with the backend, you will have to use a fulfillment. So for a very simple basic use case, I'll just show you how you can like give different answers to different users based on the course name. So suppose you have, like, ideally you should be using a database, but for the ease of understanding, I'll just use a simple Excel file. In this Excel file, we will just store the information of the course name and the fees for that course. I'll just name it at database. Because this database will obviously, you need reading and writing access for your database, and that database will help you store or retrieve real-time information. You can also, like in Python also, obviously you can hit APIs. Like if somebody asks you what's the temperature, you can use real-time weather APIs in order to extract the information. So if you have column name, course name, and you have fees. So it's BTech CS 2 lakhs. 5 lakhs. So this is a very basic database which we have created. Now what we will do is we will have to read this file in Python. We can use that using pandas. So you can see I have this information ready with me. So if somebody enters um, course name, so in order to find out what the user has given me as an input, I will have to extract the parameter from the input query. So what I can do is I have this response, I have this request which is coming in from Dialogflow. What I will do is I will check for the value what the user has entered. Inside this there is a key called as parameter. Inside this there is a variable called as course name. So this is what the user has entered for me. As the fees, when the fees comes in, I will define a variable course name which is extracted from the query which is coming, request which is coming in. Then from the database, I will be extracting the value, which is Excel in our case. Fees Fees is equal to data frame where course name, where the course name is equal to our variable course name. From that, we need the value of the fees column. Now we have the course name, now we have the fees. It's just that we have to return the value to the user. So we can just type fees for, so you can see this, I have just added the request which is coming in. The request which is coming in has the variable saved in the course name value. I am getting that value. After that, I have read the data frame, pandas data frame. Inside that pandas data frame, I am just filtering out and extracting the values where the course name matches with my data frame. I will just run this. I go to data dialog flow. Fees for BTech. Yes. Fees for BTech CS is 2 lakhs. This is coming from the dialog. If I type fees for fees for BTech civil, now it is showing fees for BTech civil is 5 lakhs because this value is coming from my database, not from Dialogflow. Hence, I can show any value to the user based on what the user has entered as a course name. Is it clear now?
Yes, sir.
Also, you can use like any kind of database. So now everything, whatever you want to show it to the user, whatever you want to give as a response, everything is coming from what Dialogflow is doing, is coming from fulfillment. And what you need to return is anything you can connect with with Python. So you can connect Python with SQL, any online database of Google, Amazon, AWS, Firebase, simple Excel file also. So now the next like basic understanding of fulfillment is up to your Python skills. If you want to do it through any APIs, then there are publicly available APIs. If you want to get some real-time information, like you want to get weather updates, or people have developed APIs for that, companies have developed APIs for that. You can use that API, you can take that information real time based on what the user is asking about. You get the response from that API, show it back to the user in the response or dialog. So this is again, everything is getting connected with our Telegram as well. So if somebody goes on to Telegram bot right now, and if he enters this information like fees for BTech, civil BTech, and computer science, he will be able to see the response because that response has nothing to do with Telegram. It is universal for all the platforms. And based on the number of intents, you need to first identify the name of the intent. And that based on that intent name and the if else condition, you can define whatever you want to do with that intent and whatever you want to respond. Because obviously response will not be same for all the intents. So based on that intent, you need to define what needs to be done as a response. So you can like in order to understand more, you can think of some use case and try to find out what all can be done, what all functionalities I can add, how can I add them. Because only then you will be able to understand what all features Dialogflow offers and how I can leverage them. Ideally, after the Dialogflow is like you are done with your fulfillment tab, uh, obviously you will not be keep on running your local host every time. You need to host it somewhere. Like and because ngrok and your local computer cannot uh, keep running on totally like 24/7. So you need a server. Heroku is a website which offers a free server. You can use that Heroku server, and Heroku will give you a free server in order to make host a Python code, and that you can use and connect with your Dialogflow. The Heroku URL you have to enter in the fulfillment of Dialogflow, and then your fulfillment Dialogflow will be connected with Heroku. So any host server you host it, you can purchase a public domain also if you want to go for a purchased server with GoDaddy or AWS. Then you will be able to run it and connect it with Dialog. Like big organizations have also like developed bot with Dialogflow. So it is a good tool in the market which people are using in order to develop chatbots. Any questions here? So you can think of use cases. So like I can just show you one use case which was developed by me for one organization. So they have developed it. They are actually using it. So you will be able to understand how what all functionalities can be used and what all is happening in the backend. It would be good if you are able to understand by seeing what is happening, how the backend would be working. I'll just show you one video in which people have, like, I have only developed the bot, and that bot is connected on WhatsApp, and you can interact with that bot and you can find out questions. So I would like highly encourage you to explore Dialogflow, find out what all you can do in Dialogflow, and like getting real time information would be something which will be helpful for you, because like nobody likes a static bot. Everybody wants some information to be captured from some different sources. If you want to connect your Dialogflow with Python or in with WhatsApp, then you will have to purchase the WhatsApp API, which is a paid service, and WhatsApp charges you for every message. So you will, like in the initial phase, you will be able to create a basic bot which is free for some number of messages. But going forward, you will have to purchase the API eventually. Whereas Telegram is something which is completely free, so you can use that if you want. If you want to connect your Dialogflow with Telegram, then it's free. You can also connect it with Facebook Messenger, and I'll just show you. If you are working with some other interface other than dialog, like a simple Dialogflow bot, yes, now you can see. So it's a COVID bot where you can ask any queries related to COVID, and you can get all the functionalities like testing centers and everything with COVID. So you can see if I enter the number of cases in Maharashtra. So in this case, it will get the real-time information, because Maharashtra is a parameter which I have created. It's a state name, and that parameter is taken, and I have created an API which gets the real-time information from the government website, and it will show you the number of cases. Same is the case with this testing center. It is now working on basis of the pin code. So if I enter the pin code, based on this, it will get me all the information from the testing center. Here is the news. So this news is basically using a news API. So there are multiple APIs which are running based on what text you enter. And if somebody is looking for plasma, looking to donate plasma, then he can register on the bot itself. So you can see I am asking for the name, and then I am asking for different uh, parameters which will be saved in our database. And based on the entries which the user has entered, and somebody comes up and asks for plasma, we ask for the blood group, we ask for the pin code in which he is looking, and then show him the name of the users from our database. So these are the users which are looking to donate plasma. You can connect with them. So this is how like a real world scenario look like. You can create. You need to connect it through APIs and databases in order to get real-time information and store information. Also, one more thing I would just like to give up explain you that if there is an intent which is defined, and if you are looking like currently this is one intent which is a very basic intent, and this will be a simple plain response, text response. But if you are working with any other platform like Telegram, Facebook, and Slack, like other platform which Dialogflow offers for integration, these platforms have different types of responses which it is expecting, other than text also. Like Telegram gives you buttons as well, images also, menus also. So if you select Telegram from here, then if you click add responses, you will get a lot more features. You can send an image, a card, quick reply, custom load. So these are buttons which you can help create. You can create using Dialogflow. So if I type quick reply, please select one post. So like I can define anything. Fees is 2 lakhs, 3 lakhs, 4 lakhs. So these are the quick replies which I have created. So now if I check for Telegram, it will show me buttons rather than a simple plain text response. You can see now I have buttons in my response. The fees is 2 lakh, 3 lakh, 4 lakh. Because Telegram is a like an application which is offering me buttons and images and those features as well. So I can leverage those features with Dialogflow as well. Dialogflow will give me information and give me an option to create interactive messages as well. Same thing you can do with Dialogflow fulfillment also. And Dialogflow fulfillment, using fulfillment also, you can return buttons if you are working with Telegram. But if you're not working with Telegram, you will not be able to like show him this response. The request will fail. You will have to use the response section or dedicated for that application, or you use the Dialogflow like the default one. And you can collect the same bot with multiple platforms as well. So if you have created Telegram bot, and if you have want to use this same bot on Facebook Messenger, you can create another tab for Facebook Messenger. You can create another tab for Facebook Messenger, Facebook. In this Facebook Messenger, again, it has all the functionalities what our Dialogflow is able to capable of giving. So if I select quick replies over here, so if the request is coming from Telegram, the Telegram response will go. If the response request is coming from Facebook, then Facebook response will go. So it's the same bot, but it is interacting with two different platforms at the same time, and you can use them uh, simultaneously. So if I type fees, so Telegram is this, Facebook is this. So there are, if you will be using it for Facebook, then you will be able, you are seeing the option of the Facebook responses. If you are using it through Telegram, you are seeing the Telegram response. For every intent, you can define whatever you want to define based on the platform which you are integrating it. Any doubts?
So this bot is like if we created the final bot and we have deployed and everything, it is stored on Google with the dialog flow there, or we have to like store it somewhere from our side on a server or something.
So if Dialogflow, if you're using if, like the functionality which you have created in Dialogflow, they are always there on Dialogflow, mapped under your email ID. Through your email ID login, you can access that Dialogflow. It will always be there. You don't have to do this. But if you have a fulfillment code, which is running like a Python code, which is hosted on somewhere like AWS or some server, then you will have to maintain that. Then like that is like Google Dialogflow has nothing to do with that server. It is your responsibility and AWS responsibility, because Dialogflow just needs that URL. Until the URL is live, Dialogflow is working fine. If there is an issue in your code or Dialogflow, like the server, that URL gets corrupted, then Dialogflow stops responding. So you will not be able to find, like, Dialogflow has nothing to do with that. You don't need to fix Dialogflow. You need to fix your code or AWS.
Okay, sir.
And it's a free service in terms of Dialogflow. Whatever you develop in Dialogflow, it is free for you lifetime. And if you have developed something on AWS, then yeah, AWS is chargeable. You have to pay for that. But if you're looking for something which is for your own learning and just for your POC kind of thing, then I would recommend you to use Heroku. Heroku is a free server which it offers, and like obviously you don't want to spend money on some learning part, so you can use Heroku, which is a free server which is provided and is capable of running Python codes. And also, one more thing is there that Dialogflow, I would not recommend you to do heavy processing in your fulfillment part, because Dialogflow has a cutoff time of 5 seconds. If Dialogflow sends a request to your fulfillment code and the response doesn't come back within 5 seconds, that request will fail. So if you are loading multiple files and doing multiple processing with the incoming request, then sending the response back to fulfill Dialogflow, it's if it is not within 5 seconds, your request will fail, and you will not be like the answer will not be shown to the user. So it is recommended not to use heavy computation in your fulfillment code. And if you are using fulfillment code, then like it's a mandatory thing. You need heavy computation. Then you need to optimize your code or use a good server in order to make the query fast. And it will never show up as an error, because Dialogflow doesn't show fulfillment errors. It will just show that the fulfillment call has failed. And why it has failed, then you will have to check in your Python or any language code which you are doing for the fulfillment part.
Okay, sir.
Yes, students, any query, any doubt, you can ask. Sir, can we conclude now?
Yes, like I am done from my side. If nobody has doubts, we can continue.
Students? Yeah. Students, if you are not having any query, then just we will conclude this session. So, on the behalf of ETC Department, SIES Graduate School of Technology, I would like to say thanks to the Samarth sir for conducting this session on the Google Dialogflow and Chatbot. Sir, definitely this knowledge will be beneficial for our students to implement their project. Thank you very much for spending your valuable time. Thanks again.
Thank you. Thank you.
Students, we are having the another session today. So now 1 o'clock is there. Exactly 2 o'clock we are going to start. So this session is will be conducted by the Pranita Mahajan ma'am based on the text classification. Okay. So we will come back again at 2 o'clock using the same link. Is that clear?
Yes,
Yes,
ma'am.
ma'am.
Okay. You can leave now.